touristic accommodation is supposed to open on June 15.
Yes.
But I hear that a lot of hotels will open in early July, and some of them will not open at all. And it's the same situation in Cyprus as well.
Even in the islands?
Yes, even in the islands.
Mykonos, Santorini are still facing the same issue.
Yeah, I consult for a group of hotels in Santorini and Mykonos. So the owner has like eight hotels, and he's gonna open he's gonna open two of them, one in Santorini, one in Mykonos, and he will see if he will open gradually one more.
Oh,
I see.
Depending on the reservations.
Yeah, right.
We're starting.
All right.
In 4, 3. I think we're live.
All right.
That's nice. So, hello, good morning, good afternoon to everyone. I think we're going to have shortly, Mr. Voyagis is joining us as well. We have to wait for a little bit. I think they're joining in. As always with technology, there are always a few sort of issues to resolve, and nowadays I think it's quite new to everyone to run those in a digital mode. So we're just waiting to come. Quite a lot of links, quite a lot of information to digest. They're all joining in, I can see.
But talking about opportunity, this technology is quite amazing. At lunch today, I had a discussion with a friend of mine. We were both here during SARS in Hong Kong. And we made a comment that actually, after SARS, there was not such technology. I think we were even debating whether Facebook existed at all at that time. So this presents a whole set of opportunities that is quite amazing to use this technology in this way that we are using now. But also my friend was going to do a wine presentation this afternoon with clients that are located across the world. And so this is quite interesting, quite amazing.
Yeah.
And this is a beautiful, of course, now we have to learn how it works, and there are little glitches, but imagine that. The most amazing thing is we have those technologies today, which we did not have even last year. I did not think of using this platform. So this is amazing, wonderful. Thank you for the invitation to share this experience together with you.
A digital one world begins.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But the thing is, if we only have social distancing like we are having now, and we don't have really face-to-face contact, and then we don't have any sort of traveling, and some business may die down. So this may not be good or bad. It's hard to say.
Yeah, it depends on the angle, how you take advantage of that.
That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or it means that every time we meet. Or it means that every time we meet in the future, we will have more meaningful meetings, actually, meetings that are actually worth it. Maybe we will need also to be a bit more picky and choosy about which meetings we actually attend to. And it means that if we are more picky, we are looking for quality. If we are looking for quality, we hopefully deliver quality, we get quality. And it means that whichever meeting we choose in the future will be most likely much more impactful, if I can say that.
Yeah, there should be a reason to do something, to go somewhere, to meet someone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Otherwise, Antonis is trying to connect with Mr. Voyagis, I guess.
Exactly.
So stay with us because we're going to start in few minutes. Just waiting for one more participant to connect.
And so, ας το κοιτάξω.
Περιμένω κανένα 5 λεπτό.
Έλα ξανά, σε λίγο.
Θα με δείτε εδώ στη ζωή.
Εντάξει. Good afternoon. Good to see you.
Kalimera.
Hello, everybody. Kalimera.
Hello.
Are we waiting for one more person now to join us?
To be honest, I can't hear Antonis. Mr. Vogiadis, can you hear me?
Yes, I do. How are you?
Anton.
Hello, I can hear you. I had my mic unmuted. We're just waiting for Mr. Gravanis. He's joining in just a second. He's just joining in a second. So I was guiding him through the process because he had to attend. So apologies for everyone all the attendees. We've got about 60 attendees at the moment, so apologies for the delay, but the technology is creating those delays. Is quite new. Yeah, he's joining in. Antonis Gravanis, he's joining in. I just saw him in, so he's going to be with us within a few seconds.
Think about this. We used to complain about PowerPoints. Now the technology for meetings is becoming more and more sophisticated and complicated.
Yes, indeed.
Very soon there will be books thick like this on how to use a digital product.
I think you're absolutely right, JC, about that. I think there he is. He's joining in. So we're all
welcome.
So we're all in.
Almost.
Yeah.
We have the sound of Antonis. We don't have the image yet. The camera.
Almost there.
Yeah. Well, she should be coming any minute now. So I think he can hear us. So I think he's coming in any minute. I think we should proceed if you're happy with that. It's no reason for me to go into the introductions. There's some very important people currently that we love to listen their views. All this seminar, thank you for your support, and that presentation event was all about the opportunities for the Greek wineries in this incredible market, which is the Hong Kong, China, and eventually the route and the export gate to Asia. China and Hong Kong being the second biggest importer, we feel that there's a great opportunity there for the Greek wineries. We've got some people from Hong Kong and China as well from Greece. I would like to pass on to Yanis Karakassis, who's going to be the moderator and the host for the day. Thank you very much for joining. Antonis Barbanis is going to join us in a bit. So, Yanis, I pass it on to you, please, for some questions. And thank you for all the attendees that have gathered there. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Antonis. Okay, Antonis, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to moderate this webinar, a new era in communication. I'm Yanis Karakassis. I'm a Master of Wine since 2015. I'm based in Athens. Just a small introduction, and I'm delighted because today we're gonna talk. We're gonna set the context about opportunities in this fragmented and diversified market like China. We're going to talk about the implications that the COVID pandemic has created, and we would like also to explore the lessons learned from the Italian success story in Hong Kong and China. So I would like to start the discussion with Mr. Wong. Hello, Mr. Wong. How are you?
Hello. How are you? Hello,
I'm
everybody.
good. Yep, I would like to welcome you. You are the president of Camperi Group, and you're also an established wine importer and the owner of a vineyard in France. And from your experience, what wines does the Chinese market prefer, and how much the Chinese consumers are spending on wine?
Well, actually, when you see that the China market started the wine business sometime 10 or 15 years ago, the market at that time in China is relatively small. But nowadays, China, probably is the second largest importer of wine in the world. And besides that, China have a lot of regions that produce their own wine. I have been traveling to China all the time because we also have our own establishment and companies in different parts in China. And I have also visited a lot of wineries and vineyards in China. In my recent travel to China, I went to Ningxia province. It was actually very amazing because I learned that in Ningxia, they claim that they will be the second largest wine producer in the world. Well, probably next to Argentina or Spain. And then, my experience with wine dates back about 20 or 25 years ago when I first imported organic wine from France. And over the years, I've been doing wine business, not only importing, but then afterwards, I also invest in some in two vineyards in France, near Bordeaux.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I see that the situation in China actually is changing. Some 15 years ago, Chinese have a little knowledge about wine. They would prefer to drink liquor, or Maltai or something like that, And of course, tea is the major beverage in the whole country. But then, because of the economic growth in China, more people begin to appreciate to drink wine, and so a lot of companies or importers started to import wine into China market through Hong Kong, because at the moment China is not open to all the business outside of China. But then Hong Kong, because is actually part of China, and we have the opportunity and also the advantage to have the experience to do China market. And that's why, a lot of people or traders in Hong Kong, do wine trading from Hong Kong to China. And then, as I see that, if you ask me about what particular wines would the Chinese prefer, I would say
styles
that,
and
yes, at the moment, I see that because in the past, some countries like France or even Italy or other countries that produce a lot of wine, they do a lot of promotions for their wine, particularly for the different type of varieties of grapes. And so, but for the Chinese people, because they started to learn about appreciation of wine, so they would rather take something more easy drinking. And something like Merlot or even Cabernet Sauvignon, because the name, well, they know the name, and then they if we do more promotion on this type of varieties, then people learn about that and they will try it and drink it. So the market for well, I would say in well, sometime 10 years ago, when the French people started to do a lot of promotion to the China market, they would introduce some very popular varieties of grapes. For example, Merlot or Cabernet Sauvignon. And for white wine, they might take a Semillon or something like that. But then over the years, when people see that the China market is growing very fast, other countries like Australia, Chile, and some countries in Central and South America also wants to get into the market in China, and this become more competitive. That's why a lot of companies in different part of the world, if they want to get into the wine market in China, they have to do a lot of promotions. They have to tell people about their wine. And I see that in past years, many companies, particularly from France, from Italy, from Australia, and even from Chile, they actually open up the market for other followers. And even nowadays, like the wine from Georgia, is the northern part of in Europe, started to sell a lot of wine to China because they started to do a lot of promotions,
promotional activities.
Yeah, a lot of activities, and they joined the international wine and spirit fairs in Hong Kong, arranged by Hong Kong Trade Development Council, and this is also one of the good platform to introduce wine to the market.
Of course, we're gonna talk about the trade fair, but I would like to ask you. Of course, you're describing a mature market now, a wine that is maturing from a consumer that becomes a little bit more educated. so from what I understand, and eager to taste more flavors, explore new regions. In this context, do you see the Greek wine fitting? Does it give more opportunity to Greek wine, Mr. Wong?
Well, actually, all types of wine have an opportunity to enter the market in China. You know, depends on several things. First of all, the marketing, because Chinese people like to taste new things. You know, not only wine, but other things like food, or you know, anything that which is new to them, they would like to try. And that's why at first, like Australian wine is not known to the market. Now it's very popular. Even Georgian wine is not popular in China in the past, but now it's quite popular. So for the Greek wine, I see that, you know, it's relatively a new product for the Hong Kong and China people. But then if I see if the wineries in Greek have the dedication and also the passion to try to enter the China market, or through Hong Kong to enter China market, then you always have the opportunity. I'm not just talking about something, you know, from the air, but you know, this is real because I've been doing China business for the past 40 years. And well, we are one of the largest coffee roaster in Hong Kong, and also one of the significant wine importer to Hong Kong. We do about 10 or 12 containers of wine per year into the China and Hong Kong market. So I see that, you know, with the right partner and also the right strategy and the right kind of promotion, Greek wine definitely has an opportunity, because I see that like Greek has, you know, very good history and story to tell. It's kind of, we are talking about culture. We are talking about some culture in food or wine. And then I believe that Greek wine also have a lot of things to tell.
Okay, Mr. Wong, thank you so much. I'm going to get back to you in a while. I would like to put in the discussion Mr. Vogiatsis. Mr. Vogiatsis, can you hear me? You need to, Antonis, we need to open the microphone of Mr. Vogiatsis. It is closed, I think.
No, he's controlling. Okay. I think it's open now. Yeah, it's open.
Okay.
Do you hear me?
Mr. Vogiatsis, you are one of the most experienced enologists in Greece. And of course, you're the president of Wines of Greece and CEO of one of the largest wineries as well. I would like, first of all, to welcome you and to ask you, how important is China strategically for Greek wine? You know, just to set the context of our discussion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Karakassis. I'm very glad to be with you and with all the participants today. I'm
to be honest, I can't hear you.
No? Do you hear me?
I hear you.
I can hear you.
No, you can hear Mr. Vogiatsis?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Oh, I can't hear him. I don't know why.
Everybody is listening. Is here? Yeah.
Yes.
Yanni, I don't know what's happening. Yanni.
Okay, Antonis, do the speak with Mr. Yeah. While I don't know what's happening.
Well, I was thanking everybody.
Sure.
I'm flattered that important personalities on that matter of the wine and the Greek and the Chinese market are present here, and I would like to give you a few information and my thoughts about the beginning of this discussion.
Sure.
Antoni, everybody's listening, but Yanis is not listening.
Yes, I don't know why he's...
That's not normal. It's not something that...
We all hear each other, yes? Yes, I don't know, is this technical side from your... we all hear each other.
I have no idea.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Yanis,
can hear you, JC. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I do hear you. I'm listening to everybody.
I can hear everyone.
Okay. Okay, I will continue, Adonis.
Yes, please.
Okay, so there is a few years now that we are trying to work with the Chinese market and Hong Kong. Many of our wineries are doing business. There was a big hope, and we at the beginning we started that we could go through this market. There was orders and wineries that worked, but finally it doesn't work so well at the end. There was fluctuations on our sales. With our promotion programs, we tried to build relations with traders, companies, and consumers sometimes. Also with sommelier and journalists. And we are still focusing. There are a few companies now that are doing a very good business, and we would like to continue strong on that market that is a promising market for the Greek wines too. And if we have sometimes, I could give you a few information about the positioning and the styles of the wines that we are producing and offering to the international market. We still believe that Greece is home to some of the most historic vineyards. The focal point of Dionysus culture. Culture is something very important, and also gastronomy and tourism, because many people from China are coming now to Europe and Greece, is some of our advantages in our promotion and storytelling in Greece, for the Greek wine.
Okay. Yeah.
We're waiting for Yanis to reconnect.
Yes, let's wait for a bit for Yanis to reconnect. I don't know why there's that issue. We can wait for 1 minute because he could hear us, and I hear everyone. Is anyone experiencing any issue at all? Now, can you all
I'm
hear?
listening to everybody.
Can you allow me to ask? When you said you had big hopes for China, but finally the results were not as expected. What happened in this case? You said there was fluctuation in the different results. What do you mean by this fluctuation?
Between the years. I mean,
okay.
I have the wine sales of the Greek wines in China. For example, we have
I can hear you now. I'm back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm back. Okay.
He's back.
For example, we were selling 500,000 euros of value of our exports in 2010. Then we went to 2 million euros in 2011.
Yes.
And we went back to 100, 600 in 2012, 100, 513, and we are stuck in 1 million euros from 2015, and then we are now in 2018. We are at 900.
Yeah.
So
Mr. Voyagis,
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
I see. Thank you.
did we say about what are the reasons of this decline from 2012 until this last year? So what is your explanation of the figures?
My explanation is that we have not we haven't built some stable relations with consumers and wine distributors and this merchants, and I think that there were some orders, and they were trying to sell these orders and this wine, and I think we should insist on a consistent promotion program of a generic program for the Greek wines, and not try to make some sales, quick sales, let's say. So my point is that we have to insist on a program which it should be consistent on the message and on the advantages of this wine, and that's how it works. I think that people in Greece, Greek producers, thought that as of the big population of China, that we could sell easily some wines. But I believe that this market is like all the other markets all over the world. You have to build your brand, you have to say the right message, be honest with the market, and then have a strategy, but a long-term strategy.
Yeah, that was my note. Invest and create a long-term strategy. Otherwise, you have some ups, and obviously you will have a lot of downs. Mr. Voyagis, because I lost some of the your initial response. We covered how strategically important is China for Greece. Did we cover that? So I can proceed to the next question.
Well, I would say that it is important. All markets are important. It's one of our important markets in our strategic planning, China, and we still have to go through. But it was very interesting what Mr. Wong said, and I do believe this, that the Chinese consumer is not ready to hear all these very strange and difficult varieties, and we have to talk about even one or something easier to receive as a message from the Greek wine. So we have to focus on that message. They are open to taste according to their taste customs, according to their ability to taste new wines, because they were not drinking wine, so it's not so easy to tell them about the sophisticated characteristics of Greek wines and everything. They are attracted by culture and tourism. So
something that we have.
And I think there is a matter of pricing too, that we worked it very well at the beginning. So you have to adapt to the conditions of the market. So it's normal that we didn't know very well that market. We thought that it's going to be a big market and easy market. It is not. It's like all the other markets. You have to work hard and on a long-term basis.
And be consistent. Okay, Mr. Voyagis, thank you.
I would like to tell you about an initiative that we have already taken in our interprofessional committee. Maybe now or the end, we have made a program in Hong Kong, the Greek Wine Academy, which a educational program for educators and people who would like to be educators on Greek wine, and so promote education about Greek wine. We think that it is very important to that would improve the image of Greek and the knowledge and the image of Greek wines in a proper way. Everybody would send the same message about our main varieties and everything. So this is a tool that the Greek importers have on their hands to use.
Okay, can't agree more. Education is key on entering markets. I would like now to talk a little bit with Mr. Gianluca Mirante. Gianluca, can you hear me?
Gianluca, you need to let me do your microphone.
Microphone for Mr. Mirante.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Buongiorno, Gianluca.
Buongiorno, Calimera.
Kalimera. Through your position working with Italian wines in the Asian market in Hong Kong, the Trade Development Council, you've seen the Italian wine exports growing day by day. First of all, I would like from you to set the Italian exports in a context compared to France, Spain, etc., and answer me, please, this question. What do you think was done right by the Italians, beyond the obvious, being Italians, in order to achieve these results? I'm talking beyond having the brand Italy.
Yes, Yanis, thanks for the questions. And Kalimera, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon for our Hong Kong friends. I think Italy and Greece has a lot of similarities. And going back to 2008, Italy chose to focus on the Hong Kong market just after the abolition of wine duties. That was probably the key point that allow all these Italian wineries going to Hong Kong, at least to start to go to Hong Kong. And at that time, I still recall 12 years ago, around this period, it was springtime, it was clear that Hong Kong enjoyed a competitive edge in wine trading and could play an important role as a duty-free wine trading hub, not only actually towards China, but also in Asia. So this actually, coupled with custom facilitations measures between Hong Kong and mainland China, made Hong Kong actually a perfect gateway for international wineries to access these important markets, as we've been talking about. And I totally agree with my colleagues, Mr. Wong and Dr. Yanis, Dr. Voyatis, regarding the cultural aspect. So, and we started to launch the fair in August at that time, in 2008, and Italy started to attend this event since the beginning. And the good move was that Italy was present as a whole, an integrated Italian system. This is particularly important. We have 20 regions, a very diversified market, and different grapes and aspects. So I think the most challenging step was to put them together as a whole, to present only Italy, not only several different regions and wine districts. Another important step in this promotional activity was in 2011. I recall that Italy was the partner country of the fair, of the 4th edition of the fair. And so it was actually a great success because at that time, Italy was our fair in Hong Kong, the International Wine Experience Fair, was already one of the most important show among the suppliers and visitors in Asia. And at that time, Italy features the largest group pavilion with more than 200 exhibitors. So a very big, very large delegation. The gala was organized, a gala wine dinner, very fair signature event. It was organized by Verona Fiere, the Vinitaly's organizer, and Italian Cuisine and Wines and World Summit. together, of course, with the Italian Trade Commission and Italian Consulate General. I think these are the elements that allow Italy to be such to increase the presence and importance in Hong Kong and then in China. So the cultural aspect is fundamental step to succeed in this market. And don't forget, when you promote, but you have been doing so already, to mention that the storytelling, no? So the Greek are producing wine probably for over 2,000 years. So this is an important aspect.
More.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you, Gianluca. I'm going to get back with more questions. Yep. I would like to get into the discussion, Mr. Gravanis. Antonis, can you hear me?
Let me just unmute him as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we have two Antonis. Mr. Gravanis, good morning. Kalimera, Antonis. How are you?
Kalimera. Thank you very much for...
Oh, no. Don't do that again. I can't hear you. Oh, no.
Have you got a headset at all? Have you got a headset that you can...
I have headset.
No, for Mr. Gravanis. Have you got...
Can you hear Mr.
Gravanis?
I can hear you.
Antonis, can you hear... Antonis Houlis, can you hear Mr. Gravanis?
I hear the echo, and he needs to wear a headset to stop. Have you got a headset, Mr. Gravanis?
Not at the moment. I will come back.
I'm out and I'm back again. I don't know what is happening. Sorry.
Hello? Can you all hear?
Yes.
Okay. Until Yanis comes, I would like, please, to ask JC Viens, Gianluca earlier mentioned about the storytelling and which played a very essential part in Italy's success in penetrating those markets. I would like from your role as a communicator, as someone who has been awarded also a medal from Italian government in achieving that, to tell us a bit how important that is and what is all about storytelling, how this has been connected with the brand, and how vital it is for generally for the Chinese market, and what peculiarity might have the Hong Kong and Chinese market in getting the story right, please.
For sure, I believe storytelling, the number one role of storytelling is to build an emotional connection. I think without an emotional connection, it's very difficult to convince somebody to even try the wine, because there are so many wines. And so I agree here with Gianluca that culture and storytelling is critical. At least it's the first hook. It's the first hook to raise curiosity, like I say, build emotional connection, and hopefully encourage the whoever is the stakeholder, the decision maker, to pursue the research further. And so storytelling, at least, is the critical fundamental hook to begin the relationship. And after that, it becomes very, very complicated. But storytelling is the easiest part of the job.
Okay. How long does it take, from your perspective, as a person who is communicating the wine on a daily basis and has achieved that with the wine, how long does it take to get to the results? Because sometimes there is a misperception generally and anticipation, which sources from the necessity of the turnover, yes, especially when we're talking about small vineyards and entrepreneurs, the anxiety of creating results and turning over and have a turnover that might take away and deviate from the long run. How long is it going to take that to build that success?
I don't think it's ever going to end. It's once you embark on that path, there is no finish line. Basically, this is everyday work. I think there's a very important issue here for me. You know that I come from the background of education, teaching, and storytelling. But I think sometimes we forget one thing very, very fundamental, very important, that this storytelling that we're talking about is a tool to sell more wine. This is not only to raise on our feet and be the center of the attention for however long it takes to tell our story. We need to have a purpose, and the purpose is to sell the wine. So I've heard too many storytelling that is not connecting with the target audience. Too many people are talking in the void. They're just telling the same story in Hong Kong as they were telling in New York City last week, as they were telling in London the week before. So I think storytelling is also about, like I say, making an emotional connection. So we have to, it's about people. And so that's the first thing. And we need to consider that storytelling is a marketing strategy. So that means it's a business strategy. And so therefore, the kind of information we are going to convey and communicate have to be related to what we make us different than somebody else. It is not what I think somebody wants to hear. How many times I hear the story of people talking about their soil? I'm sorry. Soil is so irrelevant, is so boring. This is not the way you sell wine, talking about your soil. You have to extract the essence of your property, of your history, of your family, of your grape variety, of your terroir, if we want to say that. But unless we show the people what makes us unique, different, unless we are able to convey that message about our essence, we are missing the boat. We cannot try to copy the French. It's not going to work. In any case, the French are already ahead of the game. Most people now, they are trying to use the messages of the French, but the French were using these techniques 25 years ago. And so we need to try to understand that communication, storytelling is a business strategy. It's a marketing strategy. And the number one rule of marketing is what makes you different than everybody else. Otherwise, you're wasting time. This is my point of view.
Okay. Thank you very much. The unique selling point. Yanis, now you hear us. Whilst you were asking about the communication, so I'll pass on to you, and that's what it is.
Shall I continue with JC with one more question, or should I go to Mr. Gravanis? I don't know if I can hear Antonis. If you're,
let me just unmute him. He's unmuted. I think he can hear us now. Yes?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Gravanis, it's good to have you here. But before
Kalimera. Thank you.
Kalimera, Antonis.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's very interesting always to talk about the Greek wine. In our organizations, our purpose is to support the Greek wineries to export wine abroad. We wish to have a very big Greek participation in shows in China. So far, I believe that we have made very little progress, but hopefully after the end of the pandemic and the whole situation, we'll be able to move forward together with the Greek wineries, together with the wine association. My idea is that Greece is different than Italy, like Italy is different than France. And I agree with what Mr. Viens just said, that we need to tell our story. We work with association, and I believe that the association has done great progress over the last decade in developing the Greek story. And I think we should move towards that direction, not to mimic other countries, but to tell our story.
Antonis, may I interrupt or may I ask a question? First of all, just to introduce you, Mr. Gravanis is the director of International Trade Fair Divisions for, it's a big title, Agricultural Products, Food and Beverage at Enterprise Greece for many years, and he's responsible for organizing multiple trade fairs, wine shows around the world. So, Mr. Gravanis, I wanted to ask you, generally speaking, what has Enterprise Greece done the last decade or the last few years to build the brand Greece internationally, and if you want to become more analytic in the Asian market?
Okay, it's not easy to build a brand. Just to be frank, I believe that Greece was nowhere in the map in the previous 20 years. So I believe that we have done progress. There is more to be done. We went through a very difficult economic crisis, and now we are covered. Now, we work with association for many years. Mr. Voyagis knows that. You know that, Yanis.
Absolutely.
We developed and we organized programs to promote the Greek wine abroad. We organize the Greek participation in big fairs like Provine, Vinexpo, and other events. We will move towards that direction. We will do more for the wine in the future, either through European programs or funded by our organization, the Greek state. For China specifically, I believe that our approach in the past was not consistent. China is a big market. You need to have focus. You need to put resources. It's not enough to go to one show 1 year and do nothing after that. We need to have an integrated approach. And I believe that soon, and after the end of the situation now with the pandemic, we will work together with the association again to create a new plan with new actions for the wine.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Antonis. I would like to continue the discussion with JC because I wanted to ask something. JC, can I have you online?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, JC, I know I'm a practical person, and I know that you are practical as well. So, at the end of the day, is all about results. And we have more or less 100 people and a lot of people from wineries watching us. And you know what they're wondering about? They're saying, okay, can I have just practical issues, practical guidelines? What should I do to start seeing results? Of course, this is a loaded question, but I know that you can tackle that.
You know, not only I'm a wine educator, but I'm also the ambassador for Franciacorta. Franciacorta is an important region for beautiful sparkling wine made in Italy. And I convinced the consortium last year when I started my work to conduct a survey. And I said to them, before I can start talking about the wine, I need to understand what's going on the ground. And I decided to start with the importers that were already in bringing the wine in China. And I discovered something fantastic. What I discovered is that there are several importers actually in China. They are hobby importers. And this is a very tricky thing. And for me, what I discovered actually was that, and it's probably very, very difficult for a producer to do this kind of work, is that there was poor due diligence, if I can say that. So due diligence is this. If you have a seemingly serious prospect coming to your stand at a trade fair, we need to go a bit deeper in asking them questions. How serious? Do they have a business plan for your wine? Do they already have an idea for segmentation? Do they already have an idea of how and which area of the market they're going to sell? Too many importers seems to be so much in a hurry to justify the cost of a trade fair participation that I find too many, not importers, producers, they are quick to make a deal. And so they receive an order for 1 pallet, 2 pallets, and they're very happy. And now they can go back home and tell everybody that they now sell in China. But in reality, the issue is that these hobbyists, actually, they only buy the wine for gifting. So next year, they will come back to the trade fair, but they will stop and they will avoid the Greek area. They will go in the Spanish area or the Portuguese area in order to find another to give to somebody else. And I believe the numbers that Mr. Voyatis gave us is related to this in some way. I believe that this big up and down in numbers, it is because there is a difficulty to establish due diligence. So for me, I believe trade fairs are very, very important. And I agree with Mr. Gravanis that it is not the end all of the activities in China. It is only the beginning. We need to have an integrated plan. The trade fair for me should be seen not only as business matching, because this is what we hope. It's like speed dating. You know, we go to the fair, we hope to find a date, and we're happy forever after. But I think a fair should also be about intelligence gathering. We need to ask questions. We need to understand the market.
Build relations,
and understand what are the motivations of whoever is in the stand. So very often the person in the stand could be a wine educator. So this is very important to spend time with this person, because this person not only wants to learn about the wines of Greece, but this person can also teach the Greek producer about the market of the region. So this is a two-way communication, and especially doing due diligence. I think this is the most important thing that people are not doing. Due diligence. Is this guy, then do I want to have a lunch with this guy? Do I want to go out with this guy? Do I want this person to be my partner for the next 15 years? No, don't waste your time. As soon
Fantastic.
as it.
Great advice, JC. Thank you for that. Maybe if we have time, you think about some other advices as well and talk about them.
I have too many.
I'm sure. And let's get in the discussion, Mr. Chang. Mr. Chang, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Good morning. Good afternoon. Mr. Chang is the manager of one of the most important wine trade shows in Hong Kong, in China, the Hong Kong International Wine and Spirits Fair. So he's the right person to talk about the fair and to talk about the importance of the fair for Greek wineries. Just put it like this. You can talk, of course, more generally, but for Greek wineries, this is what we want to get.
Okay, thank you, and hope our audience will not go away because it's not advertising time here. I'm like a civil servant in Hong Kong, and I'm not earning commissions for selling my fair. So I'm just going to give you some information about how Hong Kong can help Greek wineries to go into Asian markets, in a particular China. So maybe I feel I will give a short presentation on 1 or 2 minutes on why Hong Kong first, because as Mr. Wong mentioned, and Gianluca also mentioned, from 2008, we abolished the wine tax. And so now Hong Kong, we have a zero wine tax now. So our imports figures from that year is around 2.9 billion Hong Kong dollars. And now is like 6 already, increased to 12 billion Hong Kong dollars now. So why many people choose Hong Kong? Because I think, first of all, Hong Kong is a hub, is a gateway to China. But not only China, also other Asian countries and ASEAN countries, I would say. And also Hong Kong is a trendsetter for most of the Asian countries, in particular China, because for Chinese people, if they want to see what kind of wines to import and what kind of wines they would like to try, they would take Hong Kong as a trendsetter. So Hong Kong has a lot of different types of restaurants from all over the world. You could find all types of food here, Greek food, even Azerbaijan, even from Korea, from whatever you could see. So it's a very good wine pairing place for Hong Kong. So that's why many people choose Hong Kong. And why our wine fair there. That's a TDC, Hong Kong Trade Development Council, which I work for, is actually a semi-government body. I think my position is more or less like Mr. Gravenis. We are like enterprise Greece. We promote trade between Hong Kong and other countries. So Hong Kong Wine Fair actually started in 2008, and we have been here for 12 years already. And now we have over 1,000 exhibitors and near 20,000 trade buyers coming to our fairs. I think many countries choose Hong Kong because as now many speakers spoke, they told us about storytelling and building relationship, like Mr. Venus just now mentioned, and Dr. Voyatis also mentioned about is a long-term relationship that we're going to build. So I'm going to just to share with you a few examples of successful pavilions coming to our fair, and they found their business. So first example would be Italy, of course. We worked with Wine Italy, who established a very big pavilion in our fair. And 2 years ago, they even brought their ambassador program, the Wine Italy ambassador program, where they train up the wine lovers, the ambassadors in Hong Kong. And it's a very successful case here. And they introduce many different types of wine from Italy, like the Prosecco, all different types of wine from Italy, and also they also brought some olive oil companies to here. So Italy is one of the most successful cases in our fair, and some other cases like Japan for Japanese exports of agricultural products. Actually, Hong Kong is the #1 importers of Japanese food. Hong Kong is such a small place, but wine is the #1 importers. I think because, of course, we could not consume so many food from Japan, but because we do a lot of re-exports. Just like the case of wine, actually, out of the figures I mentioned, around 40% of our wines actually were re-export to mainland China, to Macau, to other Asian countries. So that's the importance of Hong Kong as a hub. Japan, taking it as an example, in the past few years, Japanese have been promoting their kind of liquor called the soju. The soju from Japan is a liquor here. And at first, Hong Kong people actually don't like the taste, but then they evolve it into some like of cocktail drinking and how it pairs with other Japanese food, and it becomes more and more popular. And some more examples would be like Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan, they've been at our fair, and they introduced themselves as the wine producing country with the longest history. That's their storytelling. They tell us that Azerbaijan is actually the oldest place of producing wine. And the last example would be like Slovenia. Slovenia, they have been here for several years, and they brought with their honey wine. And actually, it's a very special taste. But it actually attracted a lot of media attention, and also many young people, especially the ladies, would like to drink their honey wine. So these kind of examples, I think, could be good reference for the Greek wineries, where we need a really good storytelling. I like this word, storytelling, and also building a long-term relationship. So last but not least, at our fairs, you will see all different types of actually visitors. The first type will be, of course, importers and distributors, like Jepson and Halford in Hong Kong. The second type would be supermarkets and retailers. We are not talking about only physical retailers, but also online retailers, because we are actually, in the recent years, we are inviting like JD.com from China to come to our fair for shopping. And the third type would be restaurants and hospitality groups, where you would see hotels and restaurants at our fair. And the fourth type would be wine lovers and sommeliers. So you could see that at our fair, you could actually see a lot of different types of wine people. And most importantly, we are not a profit-making organization. TTC actually, is a trade promotional body. So what we receive from the exhibitors, we spend them to invite all our buyers, put them on the media and the promotions. So that's all for my part. Thank you.
No, thank you. That was great. I didn't know that that was not a non-profit organization. Thank you, Mr. Zhang. Thank you. Where is Antonis Hewlis? He's there. Anton is the person who is responsible for this idea of this webinar and opening the discussion about the Greek wine and the Asian market. So, Mr. Hewlis, you are the general manager of RECO EXPORTS, which is an international company, vast experience in global markets, organizing trade shows, both as an exporter and as a trade show. And you have done a lot of work promoting the brand Greece with various wine shows. In your opinion, Antonis, what does Greece needs to penetrate markets like China? Probably via Hong Kong, but let's discuss that.
Sure. It was music to my ears what JC said, because I'm 100% in favor of that approach. Obviously, as you mentioned, Yanis, we're a UK company. We've been in the UK for years. We're well established in our exports as well. We've got in Tesco's, in big supermarkets, we're there for years, but also we've got expansion in other parts of the Commonwealth due to the UK presence. And Hong Kong was one of the cities and the areas as the old Commonwealth part of the UK that really intrigued us. And for many know, we've got a presence as well in Wai Chai. We've got an office in Wai Chai in Hong Kong. So it's very interesting what JC said, because it's precisely the same thing that we've done in the UK, and I believe needs to be done everywhere. First of all, is culture. Every culture is different. So you need to study beforehand, and you need to make sure that you know your lesson really well before you go into that market. The second one is, once you decide to go into that market, you should go in for at least a 3 to 5 year period, which, as we call, is the child disease period. You can't go for anything less than that. Otherwise it's futile and you're throwing your money. So you need to invest into that and be prepared. In the same way as you were running your own business in your own country, when you start and set up and you had all these difficulties speaking your own language, imagine setting up a small version of your own business in a different country where you don't speak the language and you don't know the customs and you don't know anyone to assist you. So if to do your own business in Greece has taken you 10 and 15 years and you still have a very small share of the business, imagine what that will be on a large scale in any country, in any part of the continent. Number 3, you need to go and you need to have a versatile way and avenue. One is called a B2B and the other one is called B2C, because it's a chicken and an egg always scenario. You go to a trade show, someone is approaching you, they like the wine, the due diligence is number 1, because an unsuccessful partnering with someone can end up into a disaster in a market. And the second is the small retailers and importers don't know the wine because the consumers don't ask it. So if you are able to penetrate on a B2C level, so consumers can try and test it, then it's the best matching fit. You've got the consumers feeding into the importers, making the product a wine aware, and that will work on a 360 degrees basis. Trade shows are a very important part of the business. We got into the trade shows about 9 years ago in order to help us with our exporting business, and we've taken the exclusive representation of many of those. And we believe very much in Hong Kong. We believe in this huge market, And I think that the platform, what JC said, what all the previous participants mentioned, can work with hopefully with our Wines of Greece strategy, with the support of Enterprise Greece. If we follow that, is definitely a win. There's no doubt about the success that this is going to have, and that's my thought.
Okay, fantastic, Antonis. You're very clear in your message. Gianluca, Mr. Mirante. Gianluca.
Yes, Yannis.
Yes, you've seen the Italian Trade Commission and Vinitaly that are considering the Wine and Spirits Fair that we described, the Hong Kong International Wine and Spirits Fair, as the most important wine show for Hong Kong. And you bring every year how many wineries? 100, 150 wineries?
We have been bringing at least 100 wineries every year. The exhibitor record was in 2011. As I said before, there were 232 exhibitors in total.
Okay, that is amazing. So, how did you convince these wineries to adopt this strategy, this holistic strategy? Because this is important, working together as a team.
I think, Yannis, was already quite clear to them. We were very pleased to work with the Italian Trade Agency. Now the name is the Italian Trade Commission, is the Italian Trade Agency, and Verona Fiere Vinitaly, as well as the Italian Consulate General, that they helped very, very much in also promoting the presence of the Italian wineries in our fair in November. So I think the market is a matter of market. And I also believe that listening your experience and your ideas, I think is very clear also in Greece what are the strategies, no? So it's now a matter of fact to convince wineries to join the sort of business plan and to work together to penetrate the market. So we are more than happy to provide any kind of help, suggestion, advice, experience, because although Greek could be different than France or Italy, but I think the strategy could be similar, no? And so year by year, I can say that Vinitaly and Italian Trade Agency have introduced a lot of innovative ideas. No, for example, I still recall, I think 6 or 7 years ago,
yes.
They invented at 5 p.m., almost at the end of the day, the aperitivo, Italian aperitivo. So, and I mean, was actually not related to wine. They were offering other things, other cocktails, even ice cream. No, and a lots of Chinese buyers, visitors, and local buyers were queuing up to enjoy the Italian taste, to Italian relations, Italian culture. That's the key point. I think the message. And don't forget that every year, both Italian Trade Agency and Vinitaly Verona Fiere, they always booked a large area for meetings, wine tasting, wine information sharing experience, and JC was one of the most important educator there attending this area. So not only the commercial part, Italian Pavilion was formed by the commercial part and this institutional area. The institutional area was the key element. Probably only Italy was able to introduce this kind of factor. So this is important.
Okay. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Gianluca. Thank you for your help and being open for more advice for the Greek part. Mr. Voyagis, first of all, I don't want to ask another question, but I would like to say, do you have a question from your part, or Mr. Gravanis, to Gianluca, Mr. Chiang, JC, Mr. Wong, something that maybe you wanted to ask them and you think that would be important?
Well, one thing that I want to add on to all the comments for all the experts here is that marketing actually is a long-term strategy. And then besides, participating in trade shows or, meeting your potential buyers, probably, well, in the past, I've been doing a lot of, on the other hand, doing visits to other countries, bringing in delegations from Hong Kong or even from China. Those are serious buyers, or they have been importers of, in the wine industry or the food industry. And if they visit your country and they learn more about the culture and they learn more about your wine, because, when they get to your country, they would visit different wineries or taste different food or taste different wines, then they learn more about it. This is very important. And I would also add on, like, it's not just visiting. It can be a combination of wine and tourism. Tourism is, it's playing a very important role. I also have a tourist agency that I operate in Hong Kong. I organize wine tourism for people in Hong Kong and China in my in France, and they spend a week in my place. Like in my one of my vineyard that I operate, we have a hotel. So we accommodate all these people in my place, putting them in one place. They cannot go anywhere. Then every day you talk with them, and they begin to learn about your wine, your place, your culture, and the people. And if they get acquainted, then they will be interested to know more about your products and know more about your country. Then they will start buying wine from you. So this is one of my strategy. This is just something that you can consider.
Okay. Mr. Voyagis, Yannis, would you like to ask something, the Hong Kong side or Gianluca, about the Chinese market?
Yes, I would like to ask what is your idea about what is the image actually of the Greek wine. What is the first word that come in your mouth if I ask that question? Do you know Greek wine? What do you know about Greek wine in these markets?
Okay, can we have Mr. Chang if he wants to answer this question, and then JC, and then Mr. Wong.
To me, to be frank, Greek wine is quite new to the Hong Kong market, and when the word Greek wine came to my mind, it will come to my mind is like a very traditional wine producing country and with a very long history. But to be frank, we have actually not much detailed knowledge about what Greek wine is. So that's why we need some marketing on that.
Well, for myself, the first word that comes to my mind is history. It's something about Greek culture. It's something about philosophy. So if we are talking about Greek wine, like Wilson said, we are new to the to the wine culture in Greek. Just like Georgia, in the past 3 years, they have been advertising that they are the most, they are the oldest country or the place in the world that produce wine. I don't know whether it's good, this is right or wrong, but they portray them that Georgian wine is the oldest producing country.
The cradle of wine. This is their marketing. Cradle of wine.
So there is could be some kind of a marketing strategy, but then for Greek, I think if you come to marketing, I think that we always think about some philosophers, some historical things, some cultural things. So I think this can be related to tourism with your wine, and then with your food, and all this kind is just a wholesome of culture that you can present to people.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Thank you very much. JC,
JC, yeah.
Can we have JC talking a little bit about the same question that Mr. Fogetsis had?
And what's a storytelling that would come in your mind, just very quickly, about a Greek wine?
We try to squeeze your brain, JC. You can see that, huh? Extract as much as possible.
It's very tricky because all my clients are Italians, and so if anyone is listening, you will say, please don't tell our secrets.
Come, don't tell everything, but go ahead.
You see, I'm all red now. No, of course, this is all very interesting. I think the point were made: gastronomy, tourism, and culture. These are the fantastic advantages. I always say that. Actually, I just received a text from one person who is listening, and he says, for us, many of us in the wine industry, we really like to teach. When we do a wine dinner, when we do a conference, we like to be teachers, but very often the persons who's sitting in front of us does not want to be educated. I always say it is not about education, it's about inspiration. So I think we need to inspire people, first of all. We need to inspire them. And then gastronomy, tourism, and culture is definitely much more inspiring than technology and techniques of making the wine. So, of course, gastronomy, tourism, and culture is very, very interesting. But we have to think that Portugal has also a lot of gastronomy, tourism, and culture. Italy, France, even Germany, America, to some point, South America. So gastronomy, tourism, and culture is only the barrier of entry. And so I think we need to dig a little bit deeper. And for me, at the end of the day, I think it's about emotional connection. People want to experience the wine. And so, sometimes with some clients in Italy, I said, but why are you working so hard in trying to sell the wine in China, with your feet in China, when you have tourists who come to Greece already? Convince them already, give them a beautiful experience in Greece, and they will convinced after that to carry that inspiration and talk about that inspiration. And so for me, if I would book a pavilion inside the trade fair, I would transform this into a virtual experience, a 360-degree experience. Rather than just doing the plain stands, I would have a place where consumers can really, not only consumers, but also traders, can experience this gastronomy, this tourism, this culture. Gianluca was speaking about what Vinitaly tried to do. They really try to break walls and really try to create new concepts. Unfortunately, they also had to fight a lot against the traditional mindset. We go to a trade fair, obviously. It is for business match. So at some point, the trade fair needs to evolve at some point. And the trade fair for me is there to provide an environment. After that, the way we feel that environment, the way we use that environment is up to us. And so we should never blame the trade fair because the visitors were not good quality or I did not make contacts. No, it is how we use that area that will make the difference. And so for me, this is what I would focus on, inspiration, forget education. So Gianluca was mentioning that I made many different sessions, presentation speeches. One year I made 5 per day for 3 days in a row, and so we went from
quite busy, yeah, quite busy day.
That was very busy. But what I try to do is try to extract a little story about each wine, not related to the soil, but related maybe to the family. This family is 1,000 years old. This guy is an artist. He's making the painting of his
soul
label.
of the wine. Yes, to the soul of
That's
the wine, not the technical details of the wine. I can't agree more with that, JC.
So I'm sorry, I cannot be short, but for me, this is about inspiration. This is about experience, and at some point, it's also about intelligence gathering. It's about giving this emotional connection at this moment, and not be so worried that one trade fair will make you the most successful wine in the world. No, we need to think, like you speakers here said, we need to think long term. And this is very, very important. Very, very important.
Thank you, JC. Thank you so much, Mr. Gravanis. On the same bit, would you like to ask something relevant to the tactics of future activities of Enterprise Greece? If you have something, otherwise we will move on. Antonis?
He's experiencing, I think, some issues over there with the connection on that side.
Okay, so we can. Unfortunately, we will not have a question from Mr. Gravanis. I think, because I want to respect always the time of our guests and of the people that are attending, we have pretty much summed up the discussion about the Asian market. Is it time? Do you have any Q&As, Mr. Schulis? Some things that people wanted to ask. Otherwise, I have a question that I wanted to throw out on the table.
Of course, one of the question is about the size of the Greek wineries, which is a small production, and how that could fit into the Chinese market. So questions revolve around that. They say that we've got wineries of an average about 100,000 to 200,000 bottles of production. Do they have a place in the market, in the Hong Kong and Chinese market, or is a market mainly for the big producers? A question is to everyone really.
Who would like to answer this, Mr. Wong?
Mr. Wong, please.
Yeah, I can answer you with this question because, well, this is what we have been doing in the past, first of all, trying to introduce large quantity of wine from some big wineries. And then we thought that the China market is so big, and the market can absorb this type of consumption. But then we meet a lot of competitors, and then afterwards we have our own vineyard, and one of my vineyard only produced one of them produced only about 20,000 bottles per year, and then the other one only produced about 120,000 bottles per year. And then we have to be more focused, not taking our steps too fast. And we have to be cautious on the China market because it's a very big market. You don't want to sell your wine to the whole market. You have to focus yourself to sell your wine to a certain part of China. Then this is our strategy. And because we have our offices in Shanghai and also in Guangzhou, my people in the offices can sell to the local restaurants. And also we work with some trade associations, not wine trade associations, but also beverage and also food trade associations, and even some other associations which are related to our business. Then through these associations, we make a lot of contacts, and we can more or less focus our markets to sell what we have on hand. We don't want to sell to the whole China because it's too big. Like in Greek, as you say, the production quantity is limited. You don't produce 20 million bottles per year, something like that. But in China, there are some places that I have visited. There are some very big wineries in northwestern part of China, in Ningxia province. I have just visited one few months ago, and they produce 20 million bottles per year. So this is very huge. But then they still can sell, all this quantity in the market, and even do some exports to Europe. But for us, even if we have been traders of wine, actually I also import Italian wine, Spanish wine, and other wine from different countries. And I don't want to do huge quantity. I would selectively do certain part of the market, like in the Greater Bay Area. We are very strong in that area because there are 70 million inhabitants or population in that area alone. So my office in Guangzhou would focus more in the Greater Bay Area, the GBA region, and we are quite successful in getting into this market. So for the Greek wineries, I think that my advice is, first of all, don't be too greedy to sell large quantity of wine to a big country like China. Be more focused. And then secondly, you need a good partner to help you to market your product. So this is my two suggestions for you.
Mr. Wong, and of course, if someone else wants to continue, and how do you overcome the disadvantage of Greek wine being more expensive compared to a Chilean or a New Zealand wine?
Well,
we had a question about this, and I think this is a fair question. We need to address that.
A fair question. Something like, do you like Rolls-Royce or Mercedes-Benz, or take Toyota, or a cheap car? Something that is more value, that you can show people that this is good, this is great, and with the marketing and the with the marketing strategy behind it, you can tell the story, which is sexy, which is attractive to people. Then they would try it. Once they try it, it's if I portray Greek wine, is one of, although it's not the most expensive wine like Lafite or something like that, but then it's in a medium range.
Medium category range, yes.
Yeah. Then you can portray your wine into this category using your marketing strategy. Talking about, let people know about your history, your philosophy, your culture, then people will be attracted.
I think it's not only about price, it's about value. So we need to address the holistic idea. So what we offer as a value, what does the consumer get? JC, can I have a comment? Do you want to comment on the same question? Otherwise, I have another one, last one, I promise.
For sure, China and Hong Kong are completely different markets. This is very, very, very important. And in China, we need to consider, like I say, this survey that I mentioned, there are two hobbyists, there are two very small importers, but very motivated importers, and there is one very large importer. So in total, there are 5 types of importers. So obviously, we have to avoid the hobbyist because there's no long-term future. But the problem with the big importers, they're very well organized, but they also have an extremely big structure. So they have a very high fixed cost to cover. And so do you have enough quantities to sell to them? And do you have enough profit margins to allow them to make the money they need to make for the wines they need to sell? Now we are left with the two small importers, but very motivated. These people, they can conquer the Everest for you. They can do everything, work 24 hours a day for you. No problem about this. The only issue is that they don't have the resources. They don't have the money, and they don't have the manpower to be able to do a job that is effective. And so that means you have to invest in those people. And then if you have to invest, the quantity that you have available to sell, will it cover those investments? So these questions are very, very basic, because we keep speaking about marketing and storytelling, which is very, very important, but we should never forget about the business plan as well. And so for me, if I would be, I think that we need, and this is the same issue in France or in Spain, in Italy, we need to rally. As a country, we need to rally behind the champions. And the champions are very often the biggest companies or the most famous companies. If we can actually rally behind them, let them do the hard work of opening the markets, and then we could follow. Unless, as a country, we have huge funds available to do this job on behalf of the wineries. And I hope that Greece is giving itself the tools, but also the resources, financial resources, to do the work that Georgia, for example, was mentioned. This is a very good example. They invested heavily in that market. Australia, the same thing. And so these questions are very important, very, very important to consider.
Thank you. And wrapping up things, Mr. Chang, can I ask you about the next day of imports in China post-COVID? So what are the trends? Should countries like Italy or France or Spain be worried about losing a little bit of value or volume?
In the past years, of course, France is still the #1 imported wine to China, and the second one is now Australia for the Chinese markets. So I think many new countries have been picking up in recent years, like Chile and also like South Africa. So for Greek wines, I think there should be some potential for the Chinese markets, as long as you do your vigorous promotions and for some long-term brand building in Chinese market. Because as Mr. Wang also mentioned, in the past, the Chinese people only drink some very prestigious brands and only drink those very expensive French wines. But now they are more and more sophisticated consumers, where they would take their own favor, like a champagne. They won't just choose those big names, but also the champagne growers. They are picking up very, very well. And now the ladies in China like to drink like rosé. So what we are seeing here is that if you have some good story to tell and some special characters in your wineries, then I think it will be good to grow in China.
Okay, and finally, Gianluca, would you like also to comment on the same question? I mean, representing the Italian side, are you worried about how the exports of Italian wine will perform in Asian, Chinese, Hong Kong market?
Yannis, honestly, of course, we are all facing this serious issue regarding COVID. We are just back in the office after almost 3 months of lockdown, working from home. But Italians are very much motivated, and the Italian government has recently launched an export plan, investing a lot of money in this kind of promotion, and China, Hong Kong is one of them in focus. So we expect, probably not today, not next month, but in the coming months, the interest will continue, because apart from the emergency related to the COVID-19, China, Congo remains important markets to export wines, Italian wines, and probably also Greek.
Okay, lovely. Thank you so much. I think, and because we're exactly like 1 hour and 30 minutes, and I'm kind of crazy with time management, I don't know if Antonis Houlis wants to say something before I wrap up things.
No, I would like to only say thank you very much to everyone who participated. I know it was a very difficult time with the time zone and everyone's obligations, which I think have accumulated. I personally feel that I'm working more with the COVID and the lockdown than before the lockdown.
You can say that again. You can say that again, Antonis.
And thank you very much for all the attendees. I think we had close to 100 wineries at one point in there, and there's still about 70 wineries that they're there. And thank you very much. Apologies for the digital issues that we might have, but technology is unfortunately sometimes it's as easy as switch on and switch off your PC. So I'll pass it on to you, Yanis, to wrap up. Thank you.
Just want to say thank you. You provided a lot of food for thought. Gianluca, Mr. Mirante, Mr. Chang, JC, my friend, Mr. Wong, Mr. Gravanis, and Mr. Voyagis, thank you so much. I'm sure that this webinar will be posted because it's already recorded. And I hope that we can contribute a little bit of, try to think how we can be more efficient in these markets. So let's have a wonderful the rest of the day. Thank you so much.
Keep well.
Thank you very much.
Well,
thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Αντώνη, το κλείνεις εσύ,
Ναι.
End webinar.